Hey class, welcome back. We're looking at the last section of chapter 27, talking about the Koreas today, section 4. Our big idea for this section is being able to understand that though they share a common history and culture, the two Koreas have a very different government and economies. Our essential questions for this section: what is one issue facing South Korea's government today? What is one of the major development challenges facing North Korea today? And how would reunification be possible between North and South Korea? So by the end of this section, we want to be able to answer these essential questions. South Korea is a close neighbor to Japan. It's both an economic rival and a key trading partner. It's a democratic country with a very strong economy. Government and economy, its official name is the Republic of South Korea. The government is a republic. It's headed by a president, and an assembly is elected by the people. It was assisted by the U.S. After World War II. The U.S. also helped with rebuilding the economy after World War II. Korean officials have worked to ensure the economy stays very strong. As we saw in the video, South Korea, a nation to watch. They're super focused on their economy. They're super focused on technologies and how they can push that out to the rest of the world. Looking at the map here, we see the border with North Korea, its capital city of Seoul, and then the two main bodies of water that surround the peninsula. It's become a major manufacturing country, and it exports goods all over the world. Daily life in South Korea. South Korea is densely populated, especially its capital, Seoul. Like Japan, most populations live on the coast, though. The coastal plain in western South Korea is the most populated area of the country. Life in the city isn't anything spectacular. Small apartments. They do have issues with air and water pollution, and it's a big concern for the larger cities in South Korea. Many of its residents try to maintain a traditional life when they live outside the city. Small farms, they produce agricultural products, rice, beans, and cabbage. So when we were talking about the population, so we see on the map, the darker the green, the more population there is. And we have the larger pockets. If we had our, so that western half of the country on the southern edge of the peninsula. And then when we look at our topography map, on the right, where we draw that line, then we see that the eastern half of the country is mountainous. As we learned about with Japan, it isn't conducive to sustaining high numbers of people. Whereas in the western half of the country, we have that low coastal area, easy access to shipping and water, things of that. Issues and challenges. The government of South Korea has developed a reputation as being corrupt. 4 families have controlled most of the wealth of the nation for its existence. Wealth and power is concentrated in the hands of big business. And if you remember that term they used in the video, the cabals, or cabals. And then just this year, the impeachment and removal of President Park Geun-hye. That was a big deal, and that had to do with, basically some shady business dealings with someone that she knew prior to becoming elected president, and she was trying to use her power to influence. Relationship with North Korea. The two countries have been separated by a DMZ, or demilitarized zone. It's very rocky and contentious, and we'll talk more about that as we look at the nation of North Korea in this video. But North Korea's efforts to to create and launch nuclear weapons plays a big impact in the relationship with that country. North Korea today, government and economy. The official name is the Democratic People's Republic of Korea. Don't let that name fool you, though. The country is a totalitarian state. The Communist Party controls both the government and the economy. The communist government created shortly after World War II, when the two countries first became separated. Its first leader was Kim Il-sung, and then he was replaced by Kim Il-jong, who was then replaced by Kim Jong-un, who we see in the news a lot today and hear about as well. So there we have kind of the founding father there, Kim Il-sung, and then his son Kim Jong-il, and then his son Kim Jong-un, who's the current leader of South Korea. It's a command economy, so the government controls what's produced and how much is produced. Ironically, the nation of North Korea is rich in mineral resources. They have very good factories, produce machinery and military supplies. Very little of the land can be farmed, though, so food must be imported. But this is difficult for them to do because of the relationships they have with other countries. They're poor relations. And remember that China, let me change my pen here. China gives 80%, or North Korea receives 80% of its foreign aid from China. So the rest of the world kind of expects China to be the big brother to North Korea, keep it under control, and that's really not going as well as it has in the past. This was just a site I found, but I thought it was pretty interesting. Inside the gulags in Pyongyang, as each one of those family members has come into power, there tends to be a removal of those who would be dissent or go against them. There's the bit.ly for the website. It'll take you to this. There's a bunch of other resources there, but I thought it was pretty neat. You know, when we think about World War II and Germany with their prison camps, these types of conditions still exist today. Daily life in North Korea, it's largely an urban society. Most people live in cities. Its largest city is Pyongyang. Life in North Korea's cities is very different from Seoul and Tokyo, though. Very box or cookie cutter like. Everything looks the same. To me, this looks like a picture of Eastern Europe in the 60s and 70s, when most of the governments there were communist. Low ownership of automobiles. There's often electricity shortages, which shouldn't be happening due to the amount of natural resources they have. People have learned to go without, though. Practice of religion is discouraged in North Korea. They want to limit individual freedoms. Issues and challenges, like we've mentioned, it's rich in resources, but shortages exist with electricity and food. These problems are due to how the government handles itself and the choices that it makes. And, you know, him being the president, ties to other communist countries, China and Russia. Russia's kind of backed out of the relationship over the past few years. They have closed markets to foreign goods, though, so they can't import from a lot of places. And then just the overall anxiety over North Korea's actions to develop and launch nuclear weapons stresses out the rest of the world. Kind of a neat infographic here, a short history of North Korea. Independent until occupied by Japan in 1905. After World War II, the Korea split. North Korea tried to occupy Southern Korea We had the Korean War, 1950 to 53. The United States was a big ally of the South, which helped push North Korea back. And then its history of regional military provocations, nuclear weapons, long-range missile testing, and irrational behavior makes it a major global community concern. Reunification. There have been periodic calls for reunification among the residents of both Koreas. A big reason for this is the shared culture and history. Families were separated with the border between the two and almost impossibleness of going between the border. Support has been expressed by both governments. Leaders from both nations met in 2000 to discuss. This was one of the first meetings between the leaders since the Korean War. They agreed to build a road through the DMZ, and then they also built this is the Arch of Reunification. This was built in 2001. Obstacles, though, to reunification. Question of government. North Korea would want the same style of government to exist for the whole country. South Korea, obviously, is doing much better. Their expansion of industry, the success that their economy has. People would, in the South, would want that. The process has slowed, though, with Kim Jong-un's current actions of building a nuclear arsenal. And then just some information on the DMZ. So in the map, the DMZ is, or demilitarized zone, is shown in red. It lies at the 38th parallel between North and South Korea. It serves as a buffer and a de facto border between the two nations. It was created in 1953 in an agreement between North Korea, China, and the UN at the end of the Korean War. And then without getting into too much detail, the Korean War was a back and forth engagement between the North and the South, and the war has never officially ended. They signed an armistice, so very similar to what happened at the end of World War I. Just kind of drew a line in the sand and said, you guys stay on this side, we'll stay on our side, and everything should be hunky-dory. Our entrance ticket for this section, these are the questions you need to have answered when you come into class. What is the purpose of the demilitarized zone between North and South Korea? Why is it there? Which country has been a large supporter of increasing the strength of South Korea's economy? So throughout the world, there's been one major ally to South Korea. Give one example of how North Korea's government is different from South Korea. And remember to have your entrance ticket completed prior to arriving in class on the assigned day. And we'll talk to you guys soon.